So, me again. Mercury, messenger of the gods. What up? This is the real peace sign. Not this shit. This is the real peace sign. It's almost like fingering. Anyway, fingering for peace. Doesn't that sound lovely? It does sound lovely. Anyway, so how do you solve these things? I mentioned it in the last video, I know. You got to decriminalize stuff. And I'm not just talking about like prostitution stuff or whatever, but I like, drugs, they use that. You got a hot daughter, well, they're going to send them a fucking hot dude that's into meth. All right. And then he's going to get her to smoke some. All right. And then when she's hooked, and then she has that dopamine thing attached to sex and everything, then they are going to knock her up. And then when she has a baby, they are going to get child protective services to fucking take the child and to put them into sex trap. Like, does that make sense? Does this make sense? What you're doing? And then the whole fucking making David Koresh's network, where they fucking molest adults with their children. Well, they molest children with their children into the target's adulthood while maintaining the child status of the rapist. That's insane. So, and that's what you guys do. Y'all hunting predators when really, they're just they're your brothers and fucking sisters. All right, and I don't care if they're sexually erring. They got abused. All right, and they might be erring, and there's ways to solve that. Give them a fucking trip to fucking Israel's hell so they could, fucking have like, an underage prostitute. Fine, they do it there. Whatever. That sounds like the perfect fucking place for it to fucking be. Every society is a little different, And like I said before, that eyes wide shut shit, it's everywhere at this point. JFK was talking about this, secret societies and shit. And not just in America, but I think he was like talking abroad, like it's everywhere. And he said that shit like back, in the 60s? And it's been a little more than a half century. Yeah, it's everywhere. So therefore, it's part of society. So just be open and honest about it, I guess, is the best solution I could think of. Or you could chase shadows and attack your brothers and sisters and not really ever solve any fucking problems. And then things are just getting worse and worse and worse, and people wonder, like, why are things getting worse and worse and worse? Well, one reason why is because the bad karma that people don't think that they're producing, but they are producing it. Acting as communities, these totally misdirected child protectors, because they are expert manipulators, master manipulators. So they take your child protecting networks and turn them into sex trafficking networks. What the fuck? And you think my shit's like, worse, I'm sure, because the Albastar demoned in you, huh? That's how they operate too. They're like, oh my God, we are so sorry. Yeah, and then you teach people, like one of my exes was like, yeah, I had a house in another country and there was this worker there, like in his 20s, and I was 13, and like, like we did a sexual experience. And no one was like, oh my God, that was so horrible. Like you should like file charges. Hang on a second. Let me get this book here. The laws and everything. And oh my God, that is the worst. And then the person like, really? You should, that is the worst. And they're like, oh yes, definitely. That is the worst. And it's like, dude, you just gotta let families do their thing, And if you did it more openly, you'll just have less problems. You'll have less covert murders. You wouldn't have that family separation that they do. They tried doing that with my family. Although, it's hard with my family. They definitely did some weird culty stuff to me. There was once where my brother were children, were pretty young. You know, I think I was 10, he was 12. Maybe I was 12 and he was 14. I don't know. But he had me, get in a box, the storage container, and I didn't really think much of it at the time. And my parents would visit the other cult members, at the cat shows, because they're just everywhere. They're just at your grocery store, everywhere. Almost every business is a front for one of their cult members. It is so massive. It is so massive at this point, and because it's so massive, they are part of society. So they should have a say too. But they like fucking with all you. So is the thing. They like they're the creature that likes to be dishonest and likes to manipulate, right? What could I do at this fork in the road to force you to go right? And they take that to extreme fucking levels. Extreme levels. It's why you have all your mass shooters, as I explained in my last video. People poisoning me for a full year. They did to me what they did to James Holmes. And they would come into my apartment on top of that. They'll be like, they'll get people to be like, you got any fentanyl? You got any blues? I never, touched that stuff ever in my life. And I'm not worried about, being, murdered, but they'll call it suicide. I'm not trying to manifest that shit. That's why I haven't watched any of that Candace Owens shit. Because I'm a reflector. I'm a rare reflector. So my manifestations are even greater than other people's manifestations. So I need to watch it and be responsible with the music and, shows and everything that I watch and listen to. But no, I'm not watching any of that stuff. I'm not watching, the Candace Owens, Israel's coming for them. Whatever. I hope that shit gets dumped on. And she's well protected. I hope some of my guardian angels comes and, when they have free time to go help her out. All right. And if they can multiply, in the dimension that they're in, then, not sexually, but if they could do that, good, do that, multiply and help her out, and people like Tucker. I do like Tucker. They may not agree with everything I have to say, but I definitely like him. I like some Satanists too. I think there's a lot of people that, there's decent Satanists out there as well. They're like, no, we're into child protection as well, but we're not into all this like sacrifice ritual shit. But some of them are, just like some of the Christians are doing that fucking, the orphanages and everything with the Catholics and Christians. And they're, we found, 600, babies, in the well. Those sides doing that shit too. All these labels and shit gets you in trouble. So it's just like, like how are you handling it? There's the vampire hunters. I heard a story where there was this chick and she was asking to be made a vampire, and she fucking, got the vampire to come out and make her a vampire. And then the vampire hunters came for her and was hitting her up online and was like, yeah, you should come make me a vampire. And then she ended up like getting stabbed and burnt to death, and she didn't harm nobody. Like those people that, going to be the righteous label, huh? You're going to be disappointed when the greeter of hell is greeting you into hell. You're going to be very disappointed. Did she harm anyone? She might have had to go to vampirefreaks.com or something and try to find someone to let their blood, all consenting and everything. That's like consent and non-consent is a good starting point for a lot of the shit. And don't give me this, you're fucking 15, you can't consent and everything, da-da-da-da-do. Well, like maybe if you guys weren't so brain damaged and properly given your bodies proper nutrition, and weren't inundated with EMF signals all over the place, you guys would actually like mature faster. You have some body fat on you is one of the things. Like my sister was a gymnastics teacher, and so we'd watch gymnastics a lot, like, especially on the Olympics when I was growing up. At least my family would, and that would get me to watch these things, and one thing I learned was that the gymnastics people, they hit puberty later because they don't have the body fat to trigger the puberty sooner. And it's like, right? So it almost seems like you got to be like a little chubby, when you're younger to encourage, your body morphine into, a mature state, right? But they cut out all the fats and they're like, oh, look, it's bad. Look, just like eat wheat. We got this shredded wheat and, just eat that, and oatmeal. You stay away from all the fat, get skim milk, and just, a bunch of shit that just delays you on top of the poisons in the water and the food, on top of the EMF signals that you're inundated with. There has to be like lead put back into paint. There was no kids eating fucking paint chips. And they're putting lead in the fucking water. And they often do that. Like there's that one family that was doing shit to me. And they had the gumballs that sometimes had holes in it that my friend never ever took. In the playroom, as well as they would always prepare my water for me. And they would get upset at times when I would prepare it for myself. And I would get it for myself, especially the mother, But yeah, so how do you fucking fix it? I was just saying, yeah, they use the laws against you. They make it seem like, oh, we're just trying to protect and everything, but they use it for much, much nefarious purposes. You got a hot son, they're going to get a hot daughter that's into meth and fucking smoke it with him. Don't worry, it's going to be at a party and everything, and la la lu lu lu. And then she's going to do something freaky with his little pee-pee, and then he's going to be probably one of those dudes that get hooked, and then because she's part of the cult, right, and he's the target. He will come inside of a vagina, and then she would have the baby. And then, because of the drug thing, she would know that, oops, CPS. Yeah, I heard Candace Owens, they're like, yeah, God, you got to fucking, like, parents smoking weed. What the fuck, bitch? You got fucking alcohol in the background of one of your videos? Maybe, I can't quite remember. But I think I see, like, some sort of bottle there, or you talk about drinking. But you can't fucking smoke weed, which lowers your vibration less than alcohol. It invites the demons in. That's why they call it spirits. You people are so fucking blind. A lot of you, not everyone, I guess. So yeah, I'm not for that. And even like, look, you're not abusing the child and everything, then and there has to be better solutions than CPS. And try to limit your children where they hang around adults. Would be the number one thing. Right? And have the children hang out with the children. Maybe get a tween or a teenager to watch over them, right? Or a couple tweens or teens to watch over them, and that would be the better solution, because then if anything sexually occurred, they are just, closer, to each other's peer groups, right? Maybe even in the same one, depending on how you guys figure that shit out. I don't know. So yeah, because you guys are human, all right? And you guys are programmed for sex, and that could be very easily perverted. On top of, you don't know everyone's history. On top of, like, they don't even know if they've been, and you don't, like, if they've been roofie possessed, which is not their fault. Yes, some people come straight up as a demon, and sometimes people, come straight up as an angel. But, like, I had that summoner, and I was restrained in that basement, and they were saying something like, his mom was chanting, like, I'm not going to make, like, love work. And then he punched me in the face, and that's the only thing I remember. And then I always, like, played that off as a dream. But I don't dream, do I? I only dream true shit. Unless someone's trying to artificially, put a dream in me, which they move shit constantly above my head. So, and it could just be a basic thing that's wirelessly controlled elsewhere for their mass mind control. I was thinking as dozens of vehicles were passing me and releasing that fucking poison and shit, that there was like a team of handlers, like, 2, 3, 4 handlers coordinating this stuff. But it was a fucking I doing that shit. It was AI doing that shit. And AI doing all this secret shit that nobody knows about. And it's super secretly evil. And they have these anti Jesus networks attacking Jesus, attacking a Christ like me. And everyone has, I am Mercury, but everyone has the Christ higher side and the lower Satan side. I'm sure a lot of Tucker and Candace, you were on Fox News peddling a bunch of propaganda, occasionally hitting the bottle or something too, lowering your vibration. And that was a little Satan. But you would be like, no, I was a good Christian. We all have the darkness and the light in us. And it doesn't matter if you're a dark or light creature. It depends on how you use your fucking archetype. Do you use it for good or do you use it for evil? Things would be a little complicated here, but we could simplify things because you have a whole bunch of nonsense laws that they fucking use to fucking fuck with you real good. Family is super important and they love to separate family. And they do it in all sorts of ways, making people desperate to fucking rob stuff, which you guys have everything on the planet that you have to live for free. But you have these jerk off bankers that are like, no, you owe us $315 trillion, and just nonsense shit, and maybe you knock some of that off because money is the root of most of your problems. And if you just did stuff, just do it, then you would have less problems, I'm just saying. I don't know what you call it, but I just think there shouldn't be workers could just work at the company. They don't need a boss. Do what's best for the company and themselves. And they would have a vested interest in doing what's best for the company because that would help them out, and they get a little extra. But you got to do something better than what y'all doing right now, because it's just not. It ain't cutting it. It ain't cutting it. The gods are upset, especially constantly raping me, and under the guise of child protection, even though because they fool people like that. They fool the child protectors like that because they're really the child sex traffickers that are doing it. So I am more than reasonable, though, on these things. So I'm not like Tucker or Candace, and I'm like, no, you can't even have prostitution, and you can't even do that at young ages. You probably should, because at this point, you guys are doing a way horrible job, and at least people can agree, and the families that agree with it could agree. Families that don't agree with it could not, agree with it. And then, bygones be bygones. And that gets rid of a lot of the opportunity for evil. Does that stop it entirely? No. But it frees up, your resources. You're not hating on everybody, and especially the drug shit. Decriminalize that shit, Oh yeah, I was mentioning people were entering my apartment and putting what looked like crystals in my food and coffee and everything, and I suspect they were bad drugs that they were putting in. When they're poisoning me, using it for gaslighting me basically. But what they do is it's the child sex trafficking network and the child protecting network. And one is manipulating the other, but they're all working together to attack Jesus. And that's how you get Christians fucking supplying and funding, Jesus's people genocide, because y'all so fucking manipulated. You all right, boy? Hang on. Anyway, sorry about that. So you people are so fucking manipulated. You're so fucking blind. You're so fucking blind to everything, and many of you think are being righteous about it, and then you end up in hell. Because that's my divine mission parameters, is to figure out is to figure out or to restore balance and to figure out why so many of y'all are getting tricked into hell. And I think I have hit the nail on the head with this one, as well as getting military people to, for service to nation, and then we throw you away like garbage afterwards and make you homeless and treat you like trash. But we like show up like one day for Memorial Day at the graveyard of where we caused all this needless death, but you guys caused even more needless death and murdered a bunch of children in a bunch of different countries, not just Jesus's people, right? For capitalism, so people could be slaves. But hey, you don't see it. You don't see it, so that makes it okay. All right, right? That makes it okay. You don't see it, so it makes it okay. Isn't that convenient? Yeah. No. Convenient for your mental masturbation, which a lot of you guys do, and as a reflector, you guys do a lot of masturbating, and it's just so happens that's why I do a lot of masturbating. Isn't that strange? Isn't that you guys do a lot of mental masturbation, and then I fucking do a lot of fucking masturbation? So strange how that works out. But it also is a good protection too. People are like, Ian Carroll's like, take it easy on the porn and everything, and it's like, look, it's a little demonically influenced. I don't think it's all bad, but that people trying to fucking make me a molester or recruit me into the child sex thing, that was a good protection. That viewing through the safety screen. But I'm also like, one of those angels, so I'm not even supposed to really fucking mate anyway. So I don't really have an interest. I'm kind of just like asexual. Yeah, I'd like to have a partner. And yeah, I could be a freak with myself, but I have such a hard time with other people. That's why the people had to possess me. Well, molest me too, but they had to possess me to try to, and they possessed me, and then they cast like, using some of their menstrual blood and got some of my hair and then did this weird magic spell. So they roofie possessed me, and then they cast magic spells on me, to try to get a child of God out of me, knowing what I am the entire time, but never telling me, right? It is really fucking malicious, let me tell you. So you just got to tone it down on all your laws. Does that make for awkward situations? You bet your ass. I think in the first video of these last three here, this being the third one, I talked about the incest shit, right? And there was that one brother and sister, and then there's the Rothschilds, supposedly, and others, and then there's the other cases where they're like normal people, and it's like, yeah, well, maybe if you didn't, here's the other side of that coin there. Maybe if you guys didn't make such a shitty fucking society, people would want to partake in it, and they wouldn't do like, here, let's keep it in the family, let's not go outside. Like they're injecting their kids with all this poisonous shit. There's all this poisonous stuff everywhere, this, that, or maybe they got taught, maybe their parents got taught it, because this MK Ultra mind control stuff that they have been doing for a long time to a lot of you, and they do it on a mass scale. You think you're not mind controlled, you think you haven't been programmed, but you have. You have. And being aware of it is, some of the first steps into solving problems here, and I know it's not so clean. It is kind of messy, but I think it's less messy than what you guys are doing now. There's the one guy and everything, and he was all doing his little righteousness, saying like, you'll shoot me in the face or whatever the fuck, some shit neighbor here, and anyway, he was talking on the phone with one of his friends, and he's like, man, if you don't get off the drugs, Child Protective Services is going to fucking, take your child, and I chimed in, but it was something stupid, but I'm like, yeah, they fucking like, have like I said, an 80% sexual abuse rate. And he's like, yeah, they got an 80%. They're going to molest your kid if you don't get off the drugs, And yeah, exactly. But that was something really stupid too. That was Child Protective Services. They're like, yeah, Child Protective Services is going to molest your kid if you don't get off the drugs. And it's all fucking part of the government. You know what? Actually, that reminds me. You can't just be going after Child Protective Services. You can't just be going after one department here or one department. You got to end it all. End the Fed and then leave it up to the states and towns. And that solves a lot more problems than that you guys been going through, and yeah. So nobody's invading America. Shut the fuck up. Go get bent. But yeah. So because the CIA, FBI, they're collecting the child porn and then they're showing it to your kids, but they're not making a record of it. There'll never be a record of it. And another reason why they're not releasing the Epstein list is there's a lot of victims on there that, are okay with it. They're protecting those ones, they maybe got tricked into, oh my God, that was the worst thing that happened to you, by the Alba Stars. Maybe they did make a legit decision that it was something really bad that happened to them. Every case could be a little different. Just like one of my exes, she was like, yeah, there's this worker in our house, and I kind of wanted his dick. What the fuck ever? Like, as a deity and everything, like, when two creatures decide to get together, that's like their business. That no one else's really business. Yeah. Could you take that to disgusting and awkward extremes? Sure. Just like the Zionists do. Yes, they're like, yeah, we could totally bone your 3-year-olds. I'm like, man, maybe your teenagers, especially, they can confuse me as an adult and everything, and they're like, how about 3? You're always going to have that asshole, and you're always going to have that fucking fucked up situation. I just think opening things up is a little better than keeping them the way they are, because the way they are, like 1 million children in America alone go disappearing, and I don't know what it is worldwide. Child Protective Services is at like a 97% sexual abuse rate. What the fuck are you doing? What do you think you're winning? Child protectors? Just worry about your family. Yes, you could also care about genocide too. And it doesn't need to be Jesus's people. And then there's that happy medium right there. And other families, stay the fuck out of their fucking business. With the weird shit. They're not going. Yes, a lot of these children too are being sacrificed. They're being eaten. They're being sacrificed. And maybe you should worry about I'm sorry that the sexual abuse happened to you, and it was the worst thing that happened to you. But it isn't the worst thing, because you survived. You survived, and maybe you should be a voice for the ones that haven't survived. Right? Right? As another priority to go on top of other things, and yeah, like, oh, your uncle that touched you, or your aunt that touched you, yeah, you don't know if they were possessed, is the thing, and that shit is real. That shit is real. And so yeah, and then when you become aware of these things and those hippie things, I just saw a play where they made fun of that shit, the crystals and everything. But yeah, if you get crystals, get yourself some crystals and everything, and these things can help protect you. I'm definitely going to put fucking crystals near my child if I have one. And people are so judgmental. I've had a lot of people be like, yeah, good thing, Chris, you haven't had children. Why? I would have fucking given them vaccines and poisoned them and given them brain damage, and then not knowingly exposed my children to people that was going to do evil things to me. While masking it all in niceness. You got to watch out for that shit. The people that abused me the most, the worst, the sabotagers that came in there, the Jesuit witch bitch, fucking, she always bought me a Happy Meal and rented me video games. Always. Really nice, right? So you got to watch out for that shit. Someone being overly nice could be a sign of masking their evils. And yeah, it is deep and it is complex. There's a lot of variables here. No one really wants to talk to me about these things though, like in like open debate or chat or anything. They suppress me really well. So for good reason. You see why they don't want me talking in church. They're like, oh yeah, for the protection. Yeah, church, bitch, is where your kids are getting fucking molested at. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You know? And yeah, maybe you just like, why don't you have your little brothels and everything? Have a state that offers it, right? Like Israel's hell or Florida or both or whatever. It doesn't need to be everywhere. Yeah, it sounds weird, but the shit you're doing now, is way fucked up. Endlessly chasing your shadows, just fighting amongst yourselves, going after your brothers and sisters for things that are some of the most survivable shit. Now, yeah, the stuff with Epstein and everything, you're injecting women with gene altering stuff and breeding them with other species and shit against their will. That's fucked up. They could probably find some willing people though to do that. They're like, shit, you know what? You change my DNA and everything. Like, I mean, if anything happens to me, you're gonna, hook my family up, right? And you can make deals like that. Instead it's just forced, and it's this forced fucking nonsense where it's not consent. There's consent, and then there's not consent, and then go from fucking there. You know, and yeah, so yeah, less laws and the Fed. Pretty much any of the Fed. Right? Because a lot of those laws that they use are federal laws, right? So there you go. And then when you start decriminalizing stuff, then they can't use it to take your child away and shit. The child would be better off with the parent that's staying awake for 72 hours, and maybe a neighbor could check up on them when they crash out for that day or two, where they sleep for like a whole day or two. Like in the neighborhood, the community could just be aware of these things. Oh yeah, she's up, she's on her little binge and everything, and yeah, the child would be better off in that fucking situation if they're not like being fucking like smacked and everything. But if they are being smacked, then CPS is a terrible idea. Terrible idea. Maybe you just put the parents on timeout and have a neighbor watch. A trusted neighbor. I don't know. It's kind of, it needs to be more local though, because this Fed shit is just funneling children all around the place, and it's like, fine, go have your fucking brothels at Israel. What the fuck ever. This sounds like the fucking, they're like, oh, look, all these, endophiles and pedophiles over there. Yeah, that sounds like the perfect place for them to be, really, so, I mean, just being honest and straightforward. All right, people are like, "How dare you?" It's like, dude, it like open secret. It's like they fucking do it. They teach their children to spit on fucking Christians and to like abuse them and hit them, little kids and shit. They do that with the sexual stuff too. So don't pretend like it's not like that. I know there's a lot of good people. They're like, no, this is not like this, and all this stuff that you talked about is totally crazy. No, this is the fucking reality, and you should quicken yourselves to these realities, because your eyes are wide shut. Anyway, so yeah, I think that about covers it. Yeah, because it is like eyes wide shut everywhere. It's on every fucking street. It's in every fucking school. So then you just stop playing games with the shit. But yeah, one side likes to lie and constantly manipulate. Like I like to be open and tell the truth. Because I'm evil. Because I open and I tell the truth, and I I may not say what you'd like to hear, but I say what you gotta hear, what you need to hear, you know? So yeah, I'm not the most suave like Carl Sagan that was part of a lot of fucking cover-ups, especially in science. But he did make a good book title called Demon Haunted World, because it is kind of that. There are an abundance of demons here. And there's a lot of people that think they're not a demon, but they're a demon. Like when Candace Owens talks about taking your children away over marijuana, like, oh my God, have you even, shut the fuck up. And then Candace Owens being like, oh, these sexual deviants. See, there we go with the Albastar behavior, which is another form of a demon. And they're going around, using that to abuse other people with child protection, to abuse other people, just like the evil does. Oh, we're protecting the people with the COVID vaccine to attack and do evils. It's all so very similar. I can't really tell you guys apart a lot of times because y'all look so similar, you know? Think critically, and loosen up too. Like the fucking Catholic priests loosened my butthole, all right, when I was a child. Sexual stuff does happen, but it's very survivable. And I'm sorry that's the worst stuff that happened to you. Is it the worst stuff ever? No. Are there horrible sexual assault cases? Yes. Like you definitely no rape. You got to consent. Now, I think your 15, 16, 17-year-olds can consent. I don't think your 3 or 4-year-olds can consent. So I don't know where you guys draw that line exactly. But, maybe leaving it up to the families is best. And that's going to make a lot of awkward situations. But, I think you guys get through it and find a nice balance. Because all this endless war bullshit, it's going to reset Gaia. It's going to reset Gaia because you guys can't figure it out. All right. So what you're doing now is kind of shit. I think you guys could be doing better, and by doing better means doing less. Less fed, less laws. Kind of focus more on the community. There's that lady. She's hooked on meth and everything. Well, let's help her out when she crashes, and we'll watch her kids. Hopefully not roofie possess them when we're watching them, but it definitely sounds better that way than having CPS, take them and shit. Having a trusted neighbor next door or up the road, watch over them for a little while. And, I would trust the neighbor that had the body camera, maybe 2 body cameras at the same time, just in case one fails or something. Right, and they leave kids in an area where there's always a camera, even like in front of the bathroom, so they could see them going in and out of the bathroom. Right, they could close the door or whatever, but just so they could see. They no, not Peter Thiel like in South Park. I'm not saying in the bathroom. I'm saying outside of the bathroom, like especially in schools or something. Just a camera in the janitor's closet, a camera in every nook and cranny, and then you put a camera at the entrance or entrances of bathrooms and locker rooms. And because you're not trying to put a camera directly in there, you just like want to get in and out and everything because you want to give them some privacy as well, because that shit will be perverted as well. You guarantee it. I like how South Park did that with Peter Thiel the other day. I'm going to teach you about the Antichrist. Yeah, they would call me the Antichrist. No, I think I'm just Jesus returning. They're like, Jesus returned already. You know what? You know what? The Vatican has a machine that pure-hearted people like myself could turn on. And we could tap into the Akashic Records that way. And, instead of in a harder psychic way for me, I have been able to tap in and I get these uploads and downloads. But there's a machine at the Vatican underneath all the archives, like the Library of Alexandria that they have there. And that could know if Jesus' return has occurred. So them lying about that leads me to believe that he hasn't returned, but maybe through me, and that's very ballsy to say. Well, I got balls, let me tell you. I'm just stuck with like women and everything. I'm like, oh, I know, right? Well, yeah, on top of being possessed and everything, there's the angelic feature to me as well. So I'm not here to like really mate with your other females. I got a weird child of God offer. I'm not really expecting anyone to take it. But I fucking, I have it out there. They all like, Chris, you got to come up with the capitalist idea, sell something, get some people to make some junk for you, and then you could sell it, and there or something. Why don't you go to Hollywood, Chris, and you could be our entertainment distraction for the masses, just one thing after another, after another. And then I'm like, oh, you guys are trying to get a child of God out of me. Oh, well, I mean, fucking $666 million, bitch. Right? And it's got to be, it's a little more than that, but you get the point, right? And it's got to be my birth date value, my birth date's value, which is September 1981. So yeah. And then I find some of that stuff not so insulting, even though I could bark at some people from time to time. I bark at them too. I bark at the fucking sex traffickers too. And just like I bark at the fucking Christians, and the child protectors. I bark at the Satanists. I bark at the Christians. Because I'm saying shit that you gotta hear. Because if you're not hearing it, then maybe you're not getting this much needed perspective on things. And I have very interesting perspectives, and I'm definitely an out of the box thinker, which, makes me look weird. But then, if people are honest and hear me out and have some cognitive distance about things, people are like, oh, he's got a point. Yeah, damn straight I got a point. I got a few points actually. So yeah, at least if this was an Atari game, I would have over 100 points at this point. Yeah. So yeah. So I handle it all very well. I mean, I've been, like, people have induced heart attacks on me, and like I'm suffering from a heart attack for 27 hours, and I like drive myself to the ER. I didn't have a problem until they tried doing like a CT scan on me, and they injected me with the dye, and then they like immediately rushed me over to the cath lab and stopped the scan. That caused my issue. I could have probably bounced back, and then they used that to maliciously install 6 stents in me because the child protecting, because we're going to fucking, and then I get sent to jail a whole bunch because of the child protecting. But then there's the sex traffickers too, that are fucking, playing both sides and shit, and yeah, I got attacked, and then I ended up in jail, and then they prevented me from getting a lawsuit. Like, go fuck yourselves, They got every lawyer to say, it's not that you don't got a case, it's just that we're not going to take it. I did 284 days in jail without any adjudication of guilt. The easiest fucking case ever, although I'm not like a law guy. So I'm like, yeah, which lawyer wants to do this for me with the contingency? It's easy peasy. And they're like, oh, no, we're totally not going to do that. I don't know. Was that for the child protection, or was that for the fucking child sex trafficking network that likes fucking, abusing me also? I don't know. Which one are you? Because y'all look so alike. The cops are like, yeah, we're not in on it. We don't do that child sex stuff. Really? Are you sure? Because you look like the same to me. You look like the same to me. You just do that eyes wide shut shit, right? You do the eyes wide shut shit, and you're like, oh no, we would never fucking do that. And then you fucking doing it. And then occasionally one of you guys are thrown under the bus to protect the network. And that's all that is. Like they threw Diddy under the bus too. If Diddy wasn't, roofie, raping people, then what the fuck ever. There's some teenagers that are getting their vaginas wet for Diddy's cock or one of his friends. Diddy and what's that other dude? Jay-Z, all them motherfuckers, what the fuck ever. Your daughter got hit with the demon, and she's, being demonic and wants the big black cock and everything and fantasize about that shit. What you got real fucking problems on this goddamn planet, or plane of existence actually, but you know it as a planet. But yeah, so yeah, like your oceans are trashed, your whole planet is trashed. Your fucking kids should not be getting diseases, and y'all normalizing it, just like you're normalizing your late maturity and you're normalizing this and you're normalizing that. You're normalizing a bunch of shit. Normalizing child slavery. Well, I mean, at least they weren't sexually abused, everyone. I mean, it's okay for child slavery as long as we don't see it. As long as we don't see it, and as long as like we can't really grandstand, on the sexual stuff. So, just man, you're doing just such a horrible job. Just worry about your family. Sure, you could care about genocide as well, and maybe leaving, a nation sovereign. The earth naturally produces oil. The earth naturally produces oil. It naturally produces oil. They're running out of oil in the 70s and 80s, huh? Oh, that hasn't occurred yet? Oh, wow. Color me blind, Really? That's strange. It's almost like it was a lie that they cover up because they like to just abuse other fucking countries and other fucking people for their fake king status, their false idol status. Just like Elon. Yeah. Elon knows me, and I know Elon too, but you don't deserve all that fucking money. You better be the douchebag that fucking, pays me my fucking demanded amount from a child of God, you know? But yeah, and people like him could get caught up because they get bred for these things, and I get that, but you gotta fucking chill on all that greed because it's going to get the fucking planet reset, and we're going to get your fucking cities underground, and we're going to get all your bunkers too underground. So maybe stop being such an asshole. And same goes for the other side too. Fucking Christians, you know. So yeah. Elon's a little demon, But I think most of you, even someone like Elon, is able to be redeemed. But are they going to choose it or not? I can't violate y'all's free will, so you got to make the decision for yourselves. And you could stay the course into a downward fucking spiral, or you could change things and take some of the things I said as a suggestion, or some of the things, and it may take you some time to process. I get that. It's taken me a while to realign and reprocess everything that I believe and know. It's a part of my book I want to write about, the great processing event. So yeah, if I could ever get to it, but they keep on moving things around and blasting me with dues. I go outside, I hear this weird, like it's that sky sound that they could definitely make more advanced, but it's just like a, constantly blaring in this fucking Lowry part of town here. And it very well could be a positive, because there are positive and negative sounds. So very well could be a positive sound. It could also be very negative, pressing sound as well, for their mass scale mind control. And that's why Gaia is going to be reset because nobody could fucking resist what's already occurring because they don't even know what's occurring. But then when they learn what's actually occurring, and then they can't even process that. They're like, well, yeah, all the cell towers are weapons. Yeah, all the cell towers are weapons, straight up. And then it's masked in. Oh, we got these little phones and everything. Here, let me scroll some. You know, yeah. You guys were more free and everything when you guys had wired shit, when your phones were wired and your internet was wired. But now everything's wireless, and now everyone's dragging ass a little more. Yeah, all that stuff's true. Like people they have special rooms in classrooms where they have EMF shielding, and then the kids suddenly do better. Strange. Really? Really, they're not being blasted with EMFs and then they're doing better all of a sudden. Eh. Problem nothing. Don't worry about it. Fucking retards. So, yeah, Jesus would come down here to call you retards. Because here's the 5 steps of Rome here. All right, use the military to cause as much terror to the known world as possible. Poison the population through their food, water, and other products. Right. Teach them to attack their deities when they appear in human form. Loot the treasuries. And then burn it down. And you guys are on this last step here because I guarantee you they looted the gold. And it's going to be whatever fucking shit show. At Fort Knox, they're like, yeah, everything's fine. Here. Is it? Is it fine? And they're looting, they're clearly looting, you know. But yeah, how the fuck would you know what Jesus would do? You got the false image of Jesus, right? Wearing white, right? Love, forgive everybody. So so they could try to avoid hell. You know. Oh, I'm sure discussions are had, with the gods and every soul, And yeah, you were tricked. Do you still agree to forgiveness? So they think they're, but just to be safe, you don't need to. You could live in peace and love, and you don't need to forgive everyone. A few days ago, I got raped. I will not forgive that person that ejaculated in my ass when I was passed out. You know, and I don't need to live in hatred. You know, but I could seem a little crabby because people do way fucked up things to me, like try to murder me, murder members of my family, just targeted individual shit. Listen, check it out. There's a lot of perps on their Quora, but there's a lot of legit people too that talked about the same shit that I talk about. Why are there holes in my ceilings and walls? I started covering up the holes in the walls, by the way, and not here, but my previous apartment out in Colorado Springs. And then some chick, with her child, with her teal hair child, her teal culty hair child. I was covering up the holes and everything with glue. And then they were like, at first they were like pumping the shit in, but then they got this automated system where they recharged it twice a day. But before they got this automated system, I heard my neighbors like pumping, shh, 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 shh. Like I even recorded the fucking shit, and the cops are like, no, we don't know nothing. We don't know nothing, you fucking child predator, even though you guys are working for the fucking child sex traffickers. It's so fucked up. It's so you're working for the child sex traffickers, and then you're getting everyone to like, well, yeah, we molested you, since you were a child with our children into your adulthood, Chris. Come on, and they have this whole system set up, and that's another reason why I pissed them off, because I exposed this shit, But you guys go beyond the eye for an eye thing. You're like, yeah, let's kill the pedophiles and shit. You did nothing by killing Epstein when he was already jailed. You protected the network. And I actually do think he actually murdered some people, so that might have been proper in that case. But in most cases, it's not. And you don't even go after the child murderers. The people that would murder people over child protection won't go after the child murderers. Jesus, huh? Jesus, huh? You won't, throw them off a building, because I've seen them throw people off buildings. Huh? Strange. You won't lose that security camera footage. Whoops. Got stolen. Whoops. Whoopsie. Camera malfunctioned. You can play the same tricks they play on them. Use some of their tactics against them. Yeah, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, do that. So yeah, and then, maybe the bankers could live through this, but someone's going to have to first hand me a whip of thorns. So we got some whipping to do. That sounds lovely, doesn't it? It does sound lovely to me. And then for maybe some, I don't know, I have dreams of skullfucking Hillary Clinton and Bill Gates. Sometimes I can't get it up, so I have to use a strap on, because they're just so repulsive to look at. I just, these dreams and everything, I want to talk about the deep spiritual meaning. And no, not with the therapist. I want to talk to you, about the deep spiritual meaning behind it and what it could possibly mean, and the deep metaphoric meaning behind these things. So if someone could please help this 13 and a half out figure this out, you know, there's surely some that, that could be done with as well, right? And maybe I'm the perfect one to do it. Or not, like in my dreams, of course. I mean, why would I want to do this in real life? That's just crazy talk. Anyway, so, you know, yeah, people make division where there shouldn't be any. Separation where there shouldn't be any. They're like, oh, well, Christ and Satan are two different things. Are they two different things? They're two sides of the same coin, but they're the same coin. And everyone has it in them, but I come with a little bonus as Mercury is the thing. So everyone has that Christ, and Satan side. Everyone can manifest, but I got a little bit of a stat bonus, in my D&D stats here. Like I'm more resistant, because yeah, oh my God, like imagine the souls that didn't have these protections that I have. Just wow. So I could only imagine. There, there's some murders that occur, and they're like, man, I don't know what got into me. I think I was possessed. Maybe take that shit seriously, and try to figure out with some of your better magical people who was the one that possessed them. I was only able to figure this out through mushroom use. And as I started recalling more and more memories when I would use mushrooms and heal my scrambled brain, I was able to piece everything together and be like, oh my God, that dream that I thought was a dream wasn't a dream at all. Yeah. Yeah. And it was something real that happened. And these things happen, and they could occur in less than an hour. And there's all these weird astrology shit that people don't believe in that's totally real. Yeah, I just saw a thing on David Icke was talking about it. It's like, then why do all these, people that release products and everything, they get astrology readers to figure out when's the best time to release their product to increase their chances of success. Exactly. That's they do these things, and it seems like it doesn't work. I listen to Carl Sagan, and I'm like, oh yeah, Mars doesn't have any effect on you, barely any effect, because it's gravity. But we're electromagnetic creatures, and actually gravity is electromagnetic. That's why magnetars, the last stage of a star before it goes black hole, is extremely magnetized. And then that's why a black hole is even more magnetized. You'll get torn apart by its magnetism. But, it almost seems like I'm part of one of those. Here, kitty. Yeah, stop. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, a lot of your sciences is false. Everyone thinks we've been to the moon, and I laughed at people. They're like, no, we totally been there. And it's like, man, you see enough of that NASA fake footage and all these wires, and it's like, why are they faking this stuff? Why are they faking it? Why does every rocket have a fisheye lens to it? And there's all these little things. Why isn't SpaceX ever working? It's just jerking you off. Why were the Columbia astronauts found? 6 or 7 of them with the same names, same age and everything. A lot of them denied it. It's just like the eyes wide shut shit. One of them ran off, when he got questioned. And yeah, and then it just starts adding up. And then I saw this one guy, and he's like dancing like this and everything. And in the background is the area that looks like the moon landing, and it was the same spot they recorded the moon landing, and then he had a photo of, the moon landing. And then there was a guy standing on a place on Earth. Why is the Mars rover having a fly on it? Oh, right? That firmament shit is real. It's very, very real. So, that's why the sky's blue. That's why it's like, look at this hexagon honeycomb shape, pattern. There was some guy like looking at the sky because they're spewing all this shit into the atmosphere. So all these poisons into the atmosphere, and some guy like held up his phone and everything and was like, "Oh my God, look at all, it looks like a beehive," and it's like that's the firmament, that got exposed because all the chemicals, bouncing some of the light from the sun back. The sun isn't what you think it is, and neither is the moon, unless you think weird shit like me. But the cults all believe it. The Illuminati believe it. The Freemasons believe it. The ancients believed it. And the ancients were so advanced, they built structures that survived the resets, the massive floods. You are not more advanced than the ancients. So I just kind of going off of, logic and everything and being like, okay, well, the ancients were way more advanced than us, then maybe they knew something that we didn't. And all that zipping around through space and the Big Bang shit is made up bullshit. Maybe, just maybe. Yeah, kitty kitty. I'll be with you in a sec. Sorry. I am talking to this electrical device, which I, kind of hate. But I need to get this information out there, cat. But I'll be with you. So anyway, I gotta go. I just, going beyond that eye for an eye shit, and you're not even going after the child murderers, the ones that blow off limbs of children and shit, just to like injure an animal so they could shoot more people. Is how they see it. They're like, let's shoot this animal and then we slow the herd down. That's how they see it. You're not even going after the Dexters out there. You're not even doing that properly. You're not even a proper eye for an eye. You're not even doing that properly. If you think sexual abuse is so bad or whatever the fuck, go get Bubba. Go get Bubba. All right. And some of the boys, and hold them down. All right. But people do that to me. They're like, yeah, Chris, I haven't violated anybody. I get violated, actually. And with everyone's illusions, everyone's bullshit and illusions is all you got. Oh, people, roofied me in my 20s and probably had some underagers take photos with me that they used AI to make it look like I'm awake. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Ooh, there's someone at the grocery store that showed me her 13-year-old granddaughter or daughter or whatever the fuck, and it was with the Dalai Lama. And that's like Paul Atreides and Dune. Well, the famous Dune quote. You got to let fear pass through you, and only once you do, only you will remain. Something like that. And you just got to let it pass through you. So like all this shit, people trying to kill me, people trying to fucking, turn me into a monster, people, trying to turn me into a monster in many ways, and just all this bullshit. The child protectors bullshit, the fucking child trafficker bullshit, all your bullshit. I gotta fucking, because just getting upset about it isn't going to really help anything. It's going to put negative energy out there. It's going to attract the fucking demons to feed off of me. Just like you go into a haunted house and you're like, oh my God, I'm so scared, and then the fucking entities there get off on that. Just like the Wendigo gets off on that. And there's a lot of entities out there that just get off on the fear, of feeding off you. And I would say a lot of them do a good job. There's some, they're like, yeah, I can't help but being myself. But we go out into the woods and we just like kind of circle their tent for a little while and then we fucking leave. Yeah, okay, those are good. And there's also ones that are not so good. And they're like, yeah, we fucking went out there and circled their tent, and then we took our knife and then we cut our way through and we murdered them all. Okay, there's a difference of how they fucking handle it. You either handle it in a good way or a bad way. And that's up to the demon's choice or the angel's choice. And there's a lot of angels out there making fucking bad choices, and there's a lot of demons out there that are making good choices. So yeah, when people wolf out and they want to be doing their werewolf thing and they go out into the woods and to hunt an animal, no different than a fucking hunter with his rifle. They didn't get a hunting license, right? They're, oh yeah, I'm a werewolf here. Let me put this down on paper, and I just want to, you got a lot of stupid laws, stupid hunting. Fuck you. All right, you should just, be able to hunt. If it starts becoming a problem, then start addressing it. They're like, okay, you can't kill all the deer now. We need to, but yeah, you should have some reason. Uh, so yeah. I think I made many good points. Sorry, Kitty. I'll be with you in a sec. Anyway, yeah, I gotta get going. So, peace the fuck out, everyone. See ya.